Hi everybody, it's Russ from My Hammers 11. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you're notified anytime we put new content on. We've got videos going up daily, but sometimes 2-3 times a day, and every one's brilliant. Every memory, every story is fantastic, and I wouldn't want you to miss any of them, so please make sure you hit that bell icon. As I said, we've got loads of great guests coming up, including today's guest. He was a rock journalist photographer. Now he's a martial arts instructor. And also he was one of the founders of the Fortune's Always Hiding fanzine, which was one of sort of the earliest and the best fanzines around. You'll also know him on Twitter. He's North Bank Norman. It's Steve Rapport. Hi, Steve. How are you?
All right, mate. How are you?
Not bad. How's I know everyone says it, but how's lockdown treating you?
I'm actually kind of enjoying it because I've been getting into my library, my old photo library, and doing a lot of projects, working on a lot of projects based around the 80s bands that I took pictures of 100 years ago. I guess it's not really 100, but it feels like it. So like I'm working on a Damned book / magazine with Hanging Around Books. It's a Scottish guy called Ronnie Boyce. Used to be a journalist at Record Mirror, selling a lot of pictures of the Clash and finding all these pictures in my garage that I'm scanning and didn't know I'd taken.
Really?
Wish I could go on about for ages, but
yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
so that's actually been, you know, I've got the time, so it's been
exactly.
nice. My photos were in my friend's garage in Oxfordshire, and since '92, and I got them about 3 years ago. So I'm still going through them and scanning them and hopefully selling them, doing deals and doing magazines and trying to do a book, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, no, I've seen your exactly. Yeah, football's coming soon. I've seen on Facebook your first sort of magazine type book that sold well.
I think I was just telling you I sold a bunch of them just now because I found I still had 10. I ordered 10 more of this magazine. I made it myself on blurb.com, and I sold 16, and 13 of them have been paid for. And I just looked through the list, and of the 13, 9 are to West Ham fans. You know, I left 28 years ago, so it's pretty funny that even after all this time, you know, that's still my circle of friends.
Yeah,
that's what football does for you, right?
It is, and that's what comes through in all these interviews. Obviously, you've had your sister on, so it's only natural to get the big man
small
on.
World.
But small world, very very small world, smaller than I realised it would be. But
you wouldn't want to wallpaper it.
Exactly. That's the thing. You're right. It's like the West Ham community, the West Ham family. That's the main thing. And football is, lucky enough, because we're not very good at it, is secondary, isn't it, to everything?
Right.
And that's what comes through. And you know, out of this, I mean, this whole process, this whole project, I've made some really nice new friends who, you know, I'm trying to get your sister to knit me a scarf. Or a hat.
She probably will.
She will, particularly as I've made her a YouTube star now. So no, yeah. Right.
I liked her hair actually. I haven't. Yeah. I was just watching it and I haven't had a chance to tell her yet. But she was complaining about her hair. I thought it looked fantastic.
Everyone was saying that how lovely her hair looked, but yeah, I mean, it needs must nowadays, isn't it? I mean, I've had to. I mean, you haven't got a problem very much. Like
I've grown mine. I've grown mine out.
I can see it's relaxed. Yeah, it's a relaxed look. I can see that. For those who don't know, Steve is in Pacifica, California. So it's that's why I'm at night, and he's looks like it's nice and hot over there.
Nice day, yeah.
Yeah, good. We've had a nice day here. Although
Pacific Ocean is right there.
God. Oh wow.
There you go.
Not too bad.
That's the ocean, mate.
That's
I don't have to drive to Southend on a Sunday to see the ocean, which is nice.
God bless Southend. One day I'll go back and have a Rossi's ice cream. One day. One day.
Saw the faces at the Cursor once, long time ago.
Oh,
1972, I think. Found out that Pete May went to that same gig.
Really? Oh, it's so weird. All these stories, isn't it? Intertwined in West Ham, sort of the fabric of West Ham. I absolutely love it. Steve, so obviously you've been a West Ham fan, you're an experienced fan, I'll say, for a while. How did it all start for you? Why did you become a West Ham fan?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a bit boring because my sister just kind of told you everything. But my dad was born in 1919 in Canning Town, like Michelle said. And he went to his first game in 1924 and is, you know, he grew up in Whitechapel.
Yeah.
In fact, the street that he lived in with my grandma and my aunt, that was the scene of one of the Jack the Ripper murders.
Ah,
But you didn't know that, did you?
no.
And then later on, Michelle and her daughter, my niece Madeline, they lived in a flat in that same street. It was Henrietta Street, formerly Berners Street. So it was the Jewish East End. It was the heart of the Jewish East End. It's about two, what we call them, blocks over here, but it was very close to Cable Street. And in 1936, my dad was actually one of the Jewish residents of the East End who said they shall not pass when the black shirts, the fascists, were trying to march through the Jewish neighborhood. They stood in the middle of the street on Cable Street, and that was the Cable Street riots. My old man was part of that. He was a bit of a menace when he was younger. Literally ran away to sea when he was 16. Wow. But he was a mad hammer, and his brother, that my middle name is after, is Jack, that Michelle was talking about. My middle name's Jack. Jews don't name their children after living relatives, only after deceased relatives. So he was the footballer, and like Michelle said, he was offered terms to West Ham, but he had a trade, and they got like £2.50 a week to play football, and he was making, I don't know, £3.50 a week. I thought he was an electrician, but he died a long time ago. Yeah. He's a bit of a war hero. He got some medals from the war as well. But he was the one that I took after. He played cricket and football, and that's somehow they knew I was going to be the sportsman in the family and named me after him. So they were all hammers. And even though my dad's brother, they didn't talk very much. Eddie was a bit of an odd guy, but they used to go to West Ham together, so they'd always see each other at West Ham every week. And Dad took me to my first game. So this was a bit weird, because I thought it was 1962 against Blackburn Rovers at Christmas. And it turns out that there's a reason, I'll get to that in a second. But I knew that I'd seen West Ham against Ipswich. And for decades, literally decades, I thought that my first game was 1962 West Ham Blackburn. But it turns out, I remember we had a 2-2 draw with Ipswich that I went to, but that was in 1962 season. The 63 game, which would be the 63-64 season, was the game where we lost 8-2 at home to Blackburn Rovers. And that accounts for a lot. So if you wonder why, I'm more inclined to pick a worse West Ham 11 than a best West Ham 11, or why Fortune's Always Hiding was as fucking miserable as it was, it's got a lot to do with that foundational experience as a 6-year-old, going to West Ham, so excited to see your first game, or at least looking back, I thought that was my first game, and seeing us get beaten at home 8-2 by the league leaders. And then, of course, the next day, because this was Christmas Day, 1963, you played Christmas Day and Boxing Day, home and away. Blackburn were top of the league. We went up to, where was it, Ewood Park the next day, the Sunday, I think, and we beat them, I think, 5-1. And that's West Ham, right? That was what I grew up with. We beat Fulham 7-2, we beat Fulham 6-1, we beat Sunderland, like Michelle said, 8-0, we beat Newcastle 10-0, but then we'd be 3-0 up against Stoke and we'd lose or we'd draw. And that was the 70s, that was the 60s and 70s, growing up with West Ham. But that was my whole being, everything was geared towards Saturday, 3 o'clock football. That was all I wanted, all I dreamt of. And my number 10 shirt was actually a Jeff Hurst shirt, although he's generally known as a number 9. Braidwood Boyce, Burnhurst Sissons was the forward line. So Jeff Hurst was the number 10. That was my first football shirt that I got from, I think it was called Ilford Sports in Cranbrook Road. And
I think he's still there.
I used to know the family. Well, I used to know the family that ran it because his daughter went to school with me. Yeah. Highlands in Ilford. Yeah. So, it was always West Ham. There was never any,
any deviation.
We were a West Ham family. We grew up in the East End. We moved to Ilford, Barkingside. The house in Manor Park, we moved there in 1970 or 71, right near the Reverend, actually. Hopefully you've got he's not a Reverend anymore, but hopefully you've got Elwyn on, or you've had Elwyn
we've had Elwyn Crockett, great guy.
So he lived around the corner from us in Manor Park, just off Wanstead Park Road.
Oh, how funny.
Great guy. In fact, he did the service when my mum died in 2008, and Mum was not a football fan, so she was the only one in the family that wasn't a football fan. But after my old man died in 1984, she became the expert. So she would tell me, like, Mum, don't tell me about football, all right? So she'd see something and then she'd say, no, you're wrong. Like, Mum, don't do that. Anyway, at her funeral, we were atheist Jews.
Yeah.
So she had a non-denominational service. But we asked Elwyn to do the service, to do a non-denominational service. And we actually buried her. She was cremated, but on the coffin we put a West Ham scarf, and we did play bubbles at her funeral. That and the theme to Hill Street Blues.
Yeah.
So
I had my
so
granddad.
it's funny that
he had bubbles as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and the worst experience I had with my mum, certainly one of the worst. There was that time she hit me in the eye with a plate. I've still got a scar. I never knew what that was about. That was some displaced aggression over something not related to me, I think. But we had this. I went back once. I was living here, and I went back, and it was a Saturday afternoon. For some reason, I didn't go to the game. It was away to Reading, and couldn't follow it. You know, I had a computer, and I was trying to follow the score. And it was Saturday afternoon. They had the football, and they kept flashing up the score. We were losing 1-0, and then we were losing 2-0. She kept saying, "Oh, they've scored again." Like, don't tell me what? Don't tell me that. She says, "Oh, they scored again." It's like half time. We're losing 4-0 to Reading. And Mum kept telling me what was going to happen because somehow she was listening to the radio, and she was like a minute ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I was so upset because we were getting hammered by Reading. I stormed out of the house. I was in such a temper. I think we lost 6-0. You remember that game?
Yeah, I do. I was about to say, it finished 6-0. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah. And she was just taking the piss, you know, and I couldn't handle it. Don't take the piss about West Ham when we're losing 6-0. It's just not.
No,
that's not funny. No.
See, Reading. We had a real sort of battle with Reading, didn't we? If I remember, was it Jimmy KB or something like that. There was a couple of their Reading players who always scored against us, and it was a bit of a needle match, if I remember, for a while. Us and Reading.
Reading needle match. That's
you know
funny
what I mean?
because like
yeah.
every club, like, oh, he always scores against us.
Yeah.
I mean, every club, there's someone.
Yeah.
There's a Lukaku or there's someone who 70% of the goals he ever scored in the Premier League or the First Division was scored against West Ham.
Yeah.
Or someone who hadn't scored for 2 years, just needed to play West Ham, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think because obviously we nicked Pardew from there, and I think ever since Reading, and there was always. I remember for a couple of seasons it was always a bit funny with us and them.
Oh, it was the Pardew thing. They got really pissed off about that, didn't they?
Yeah.
But probably he wasn't diddling any of the players' wives at the time, so they still liked him.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
He might be coming on the channel soon, so allegedly.
You better ask him about that.
Yeah, I'll ask him about that. I'm sure the interview will be somewhat cut short. So obviously since then,
ask him at the end.
Yeah, I'll ask him at the end, right at the end. Anyway, thanks, Alan. Anyway, one more question, like Columbo style. Just one more thing.
One more question. Ian Bishop and Trevor Morley.
Yes.
A knife, something. What was that all about?
What was that all about? And Ian Bishop's a lovely guy. We've had him on the channel. I've got a lot of time.
I believe it is. And he had the best nickname of all time given to him by Fortune's Always Hiding. The Ian Bishop. And in fact, in Fortune's, it was Porky who did the cartoon.
Yeah.
And it was based on that graphic of it's the Bishop from Monty Python.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing, that Ian was the Bishop. You remember the Bishop? He was like a mob guy. Mobbed up Bishop. And so that was Phil Jupitus. He was our cartoonist in Fortune's Always Hiding.
Yeah.
Porky the Poet, the legend.
Porky the Poet. You, Pete May. It was a whole bunch of you, wasn't it? In that when you had the fanzine, it was a big group of people, wasn't it?
So I was just thinking about that before talking to you, because, and especially in this time of neo-Nazis and neo-fascists in the streets of London, it occurred to me that the core group of that fanzine, what an amazing assembly of talent. It's like the West Ham team that got relegated. That had Joe Cole and Frank Lampard.
Too
and
good
Michael
to go
Carrick,
down.
Bobby Moore and Vic Watson, and that was a great team. That was. That we had Pete May, who is a great journalist and author, and has written a whole load of books. He was Fred Smeggins, age 68. He's still age 68. Lucky him. I'm catching up. I'll be there in a few years. There was Porky the poet. Phil Porky Jupitus was the cartoonist, and of course he's an absolute legend and no longer a man of mystery. His cartoons were like the core of the fanzine. Joe Norris, Big Joe, who used to write for the fanzine, he was the brawn and the brains behind the Red Wedge tour in '86, or certainly the comedy tour, because he got all those venues booked. And he worked with Addison Cresswell at Off the Curb, booking comedy acts like Phil Jupitus. And Don Peretta, the Don, also a good nickname, the Don Peretta, was also a core member of Fortune's Always Hiding, also became a great journalist and actually brought Italian football to Channel 4. He was the man behind that. And Mike Pattenden, who is a well-known journalist and author as well, who I used to play football with. Once we were losing 2-1. I'm very tangential, aren't I? I go off on a lot of tangents. We were losing 2-1, and it was the last minute of the game. And I was playing on the right wing, and Mike was good in the air. It was very rare in those days to play with anyone who was good in the air. And I did the sweetest Trevor Brooking / Alan Devonshire cross with the inside of my right boot in the last minute. And it was one of those when you hit it, and it sailed across the penalty area, and it arced and curled. And Mike's around. He's been steaming upfield to try and get there. And I see him. I look up and I see him, and I hit this curling cross, and he's about the edge of the box. And he comes to the penalty area, and he leaps. And he was a pretty tall guy. He probably still is. And he leaps, and this ball curls onto his head. Boom! And he heads it right into the top corner for the equaliser in the last minute. That was still one of my best football memories ever. So Mike Pattenden, so he worked on the fanzine.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty much the core group, and they're all like really talented, brilliant journalists, comedians, writers, etc. And it occurs to me that all of them were involved in some way or other with Red Wedge in 85, 86. And I bring that up because I was one of the contributors to the Daniel Rachel book, Walls Come Tumbling Down. A load of my photos are in that book because I was a Red Wedge photographer. And I'm doing a book. That's one of my plans, is a book of Red Wedge photos, because I was on the tour with the Style Council and Billy and Communards and a lot of great bands. Johnny Marr was on the tour. And I took pictures on the comedy tour as well, which Porky was on. And he was on stage with Joe, and they were together at Cardiff on the Red Wedge tour as well. So it's funny that we were all very involved in left-wing politics as well, especially given West Ham's reputation, well-earned, hard-earned, ICF, Mile End, a lot of, let's say, right-wing guys. There were a bunch of left-wing guys as well, at least back in the day. And we were all the Red Wedges were all Hammers. It was really funny, and it's that same core group. Remembering now, because Red Wedge is being talked about a lot again. Weller's got a new album out, and I'm connecting with a lot of the Paul Weller crowd. And it's funny that a lot of those core Red Wedge people were all Hammers, including, of course, the founder, Billy Bragg. Of course.
It's funny, isn't it? It's one of those things where it just seems there's always a West Ham fan somewhere. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like every sort of little, whether it's a group of people, not so much stuff you did, but obviously you talk to people, and there's always a West Ham connection somewhere. We're infiltrated everywhere, aren't we? We've got our fingers in so many pies as a community, and that's how this is.
And a lot of people don't know that either. Sound like Michael Caine now. Not a lot of people know that, but there are a lot of Hammers fans over the years that people are like, wait, Keira Knight is a West Ham fan? Yeah, of course she is. She used to go to that pub in Hollywood every Saturday to watch the games. Yeah. I used to go there, so I can't remember the name of it now, but there are a lot of West Ham fans. I wonder about Tim Ross, because he was actually an original Red Wedger, was Tim Ross. Really? And I scanned a bunch of my pictures from the Artists Against Apartheid Festival at Clapham Common recently as well, which is right by where I used to live. And Tim Roth was on stage there as well, and he came on the Red Wedge tour. Well, in this country, in America, he was in a show called Lie to Me. Did that ever? Yeah. And he played a Cockney. He had a company, and he could tell if people were lying or not. So people would hire him to figure out, we've got this multi-million-dollar deal. We need to know whether this person's telling the truth or not.
Yeah.
And he had all these technologies, the amazing technologies for figuring out whether people were lying or not. So in the show, he goes back to London and he comes back and someone meets him at the airport at JFK in New York. He says, "How was your trip?" He says, "Great, West Ham 1-4-3. And I thought, that doesn't sound true. I think he's got a West Ham scarf on.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that was actually because he's a West Ham fan. I don't ever remember it coming up before. But, okay, another tangent. EastEnders, on the other hand. So when EastEnders started, there's a bunch of blokes at the BBC sitting around, noodling about this idea they've got for a show set in the East End. And they said, well, they've all got to be West Ham fans, right? No, they said they've got to be Arsenal fans. So these knobs at the BBC said, no, it should be Arsenal fans. Fuck off. It's the East End.
East End.
Okay, we'll make up a fake team then. So Walford, whatever it's called, Walford United. But the thing was, they were all Cockneys and they were all West Ham fans. So I remember when we drew with Hereford in the Cup, and then we played the game in during the blackout. Was it 74 under Edward Heath, when there was the miners' strike and there were blackouts, and we had to play the replay against Hereford at 3:00, and I had to bunk off school to go and see the game. And they talked about that in the pub in one of the episodes. And I'm going to go on a whole tangent here. So Nick Berry, he used to live on the same council estate as us in Manor Park. He lived about 50 yards away, and he went to school with Michelle. He went to Wanstead County High School. So we knew him. And then Mike Reed lived on the next street, Claverley Road, I think it was called. And he had a troubled son who would set fire to phone boxes or mailboxes, letterboxes. And I used to go on the bus to school with his daughter in the morning. So Mike Reed, who was the owner of the pub, he was the first landlord of the pub.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was Leslie Grantham.
Yes,
so Leslie Grantham was a West Ham fan.
Yep.
And he was once doing a TV show, and I was working on a video as a photographer in an East End studio, and I had a copy of the fanzine, and I said, "Oh, Leslie Grantham, he's getting lunch, I've got to go and give him this." And he had no idea what a football fanzine was. He was a West Ham fan, but he had no idea what a fanzine was. I think the same thing happened with Trevor Brooking. I think we gave him one once, he didn't know what it was. But so Leslie Grantham was a hammer, Mike Reed was a hammer, Nick Berry was a mad hammer, Todd Carty was a mad hammer. So I became friends with Todd because I took pictures of him when I worked for Just 17, when I freelanced for Just 17. And then Todd and Nick used to go to all the games together. And he had a Range Rover. Nick had a Range Rover. And he'd always come down Green Street, and we'd be outside Ken's Cafe with the fanzine. And Nick would always roll down the window, call us over. "All right, how you doing?" Get his copy of the fanzine. And wrote us a really nice letter once. Anyway, so on the show, so Nick Berry had the Fortune's Always Hiding t-shirt. Michelle Collins was a friend of mine because she was the backing singer with Mary Wilson and the Wilsations. And Mandy Metro was the other backing singer. She was a mate of mine. So Michelle was his wife, right, in the TV show.
Yeah.
In EastEnders. And remember when they were, there was a siege? Like he had a gun and there was a siege.
Vaguely,
went on for weeks.
Yeah.
The whole way through the siege, he wore a Fortune's Always Hiding t-shirt.
Brilliant.
So I hope he's doing well. Lovely bloke. Todd Carty, lovely bloke. Those hammers, there were so many connections with West Ham in EastEnders, even though officially they were not part of it. No. Everyone in the pub would be wearing West Ham scarves. They'd always be talking about West Ham. There was always West Ham things on the wall. And that was because I think so many people who worked on that show were hammers, even though they were all supposed to support Walford United.
Well, it's the same. Yeah, it's continuing now. You've got who's in Danny Dyer is the landlord, and he's really, Danny Dyer. Yeah, and so he's a massive West Ham fan. So there's a lot of West Ham memorabilia, I believe, in the Queen Vic. For what I remember seeing.
Good. Yeah. Still there.
There's still a few there. Billy Mitchell, who's Perry.
Billy Mitchell, yeah.
Perry something. Anyway, there's still plenty there.
Glenn Murphy.
Yeah, London's Burning.
Glenn Murphy, mad West Ham fan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My favourite story about Ambrose Mendy involves Glenn Murphy. So when Paul Ince, the reason we hated Paul Ince, right, was because he wore a Man United shirt when he was still playing for West Ham. The man behind that was Ambrose Mendy. He was his manager. We used to call him Ambrose Bendy Mendy. He was Nigel Benn's manager. So he was involved in the East End mafia kind of, subculture, boxing, football.
Yeah.
And he got in Paul Ince's ear about, you're better than this team, you're better than this club. Man United are interested. Put this shirt on, we'll take a picture, we'll sell it to the Mirror, then you get a big contract with Man United. And that all backfired, right? So this one year I'm playing in a five-a-side football tournament on the shitty pitch at QPR at Loftus Road, on the plastic pitch. Yeah. And it's all music business people. And somehow I got invited to play, and I'm playing with Glenn Murphy and a bunch of West Ham fans, and we're playing a bunch of Tom Watt and a bunch of Arsenal fans. There's one East Ender who was not a Hammer.
True.
And Glenn Murphy was playing for us, and Ambrose Bendy Mendy was playing for them. And Mendy went in hard on Glenn Murphy. He went in late on Glenn Murphy, and Glenn Murphy just turned around and clocked him. He just punched him right in the face. And it was one of the best things I ever saw in my life.
Oh, dear.
Ray Winston couldn't have done it better.
No, better say, yeah. That's Rincy. Yeah.
Ray Winston just would have called him a C word first, and then would have punched him.
Yeah. There'd have been sort of the prelude, just sort of the introduction. Rather than Glenn straight in, but he makes a thing of it. How Ray does.
Glenn just went straight in. He was not messing about. I think he had a bit of Paul Ince revenge in mind. Yeah. At the time. Yeah.
That's for Ince.
Because Ince was a great player. He was a great hammer, and then it was a real shame what happened.
No, he
could
was
have been a captain for years.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, we had Tony Carr on the channel the other day, and obviously he was instrument in it. We was going through the lists of players that have come through the academy, and obviously he had 4 England captains, including the first black, obviously the first black captain as well, really, Paul Ince, wasn't he? And so it was 4 captains, and we did his academy 11, and it's like, fucking hell, like literally the play. It was unbelievable. The only doubt, goalkeeper was a bit of an issue. He put Stephen Bywater in, but everyone else was like, fucking hell, it's absolutely mental. He had like a third of the England 2010 World Cup squad came through our academy.
Right, amazing
Man.
Did you know that Paul Ince was actually solely responsible for us getting relegated?
Really?
Yeah, because John Lyle was about to get sacked, right? He had to get sacked because I know he was a great hammer and everything, but we had really lost our way. I mean, we knew we were going to get relegated unless we took action. It's like February or March. I can't remember what year, like 89, 88, somewhere around there. And we played Liverpool in the cup, in the League Cup on a Wednesday night, I think. And we beat them 4-1. And Ince scored twice. And my car got broken into. And that's not really relevant to the story, actually. But that 4-1 win against Liverpool saved John Lyle's job. But that was a really bad thing because we got relegated. It was clear to us he needed to get fired. They needed a new manager, otherwise we were going to go down. But because we won 4-1 against Liverpool, like, no, let's have him keep his job. And
history repeats itself.
It's his fault. He scored with that volley.
Yeah.
One of the goals was a volley, and we were really happy at the time. I thought, now they're not going to fire John Lyle, are they?
If you just beat Liverpool 4-1, and Liverpool riding high as well, weren't it? So, yeah. Oh well. Poor old Ince. Right. Anyway, let's get on to your 11, Steve.
I don't have an 11.
We're just going to chat for another.
Go ahead. Ask me a question then.
Yeah. Right. I want to ask
goal.
you. Okay. So in goal, who would be in goal between the sticks for Rapport 11? Who's going to be?
So this is actually my favourite West Ham story.
Yeah.
About why we love West Ham and why we're kind of the lovable losers. Like Michelle was talking about Fortune's Always Hiding, or maybe you were about, why do we have that as a song instead of, You Never Walk Alone. So in 67 or 68, we bought Bobby Ferguson from Kilmarnock for like £65,000, which was a world record for a goalkeeper. And I think he was 5'7". He might have been 5'8". I'm 5'7". It's very, very, very small to be a goalkeeper. You're a bit of a gnome in goal at 5'7". I'd like to see a picture of him standing next to Phil Parks.
Yeah.
And we always thought that was a little bit odd, and it turned out years later we were actually offered Gordon Banks, and I was actually behind the goal in the North Bank when he made that save from the Jeff Hurst penalty. There's a fantastic picture that you can find. You can Google it.
Yeah.
There's a fantastic black and white of Jeff strode up, smashed that ball. This is in the semi-final of the League Cup. Top corner, go! And then Banks comes from nowhere and saves it. It was the most amazing save I ever saw in my life. Him. We could have had him, England's World Cup goalie. We were offered him. But apparently we'd already made a deal. Ron Greenwood had already made a deal with Kilmarnock to buy Bobby Ferguson. He said, I can't go back on a deal. We shook hands. If I go back on the deal, no one will ever trust us or trust me again. And that's why we had Bobby Ferguson and not Gordon Banks in goal. But I really admire him for having some integrity. And that reminds me of something that Reverend Elwin might have told you. Did he ever tell you that Ronnie Boyce story about Ron Greenwood and Don Revie?
No.
About how Ron Greenwood never used to swear, ever. Except once. And it's like something in a movie. Don Revie, like the most dishonest, the absolute polar opposite of Ron Greenwood. So Leeds come to West Ham and it's probably 66, 67, and they really need to win the league. And Don Revie goes to see Ron Greenwood in his office, which you would never do. A manager going to see another manager in his office before the game. And the door's open. And what Don Revie doesn't know is that Ronnie Boyce is in the office. He's behind the door. It's like one of those scenes where the door opens and he's got an envelope. And he gives this envelope to Ron Greenwood. And he says, look, we need these points a lot more than you do. And Ron Greenwood says, fuck off. Fuck off out of my office. Don't you ever come back in here again. And I think Ronnie Boyce I'm not sure we're supposed to tell anyone that, but I think Ronnie Boyce might have told that story to Elwin. And he only knew because he was in the office at the time.
Instead of the door.
The England manager, the future England manager, trying to bung Ron Greenwood a few quid to throw a game. Unbelievable? Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, the damned United.
Indeed. And a random tangent. I used to, at university, my housemate was Don Greenwood's grandson.
What was his name?
His name was Aidan.
Greenwood. His name was Greenwood.
Not Greenwood. Sorry, Don Revie. Don Revie's grandson. Not Roy Greenwood. Don Revie's grandson. Fucking hell. Get it right.
Was he a twat?
Anyway, he was
anyway,
all right.
In goal.
Anyway,
in goal.
Yeah,
Phil Parkes probably, but it could be Ludo. It could be Mervyn Day before he got married. Because the day after he got married, he was shit. I don't know what happened there. Someone's got to find out that story. So he was brilliant until he was 20, 21, and then he got married, and then he got lobbed against Everton, and then it was downhill from there. But Parksy was such a great goalie.
Yeah.
But so was Ludo, and there was something just great about having Ludo in the team. But I think I'll go with Parksy.
Yeah, go with Parksy.
All right, Marie, that one's for you.
Yeah, Marie will be happy. Yep, she will have her on soon. We'll put Parksy in. Let's go left back and see how we get on.
Left back. Oh, it's got to be Dixie. Although it could be Frank.
Yeah.
Because Frank Lampard was such a great left back.
Yeah.
Marauding down the left wing. But Dixie was a whole other level. He was such a menace. He was like a man out of time as well. Imagine him playing now.
Oh yeah.
So I went to Villa once, and we were on all the West Ham were down the side, the terrace down the side, and Tony Daly, who was in the England team at the time, was playing for Villa. So he's playing right wing, Julian's left back, and right in front of us, there's a 60-40 ball, maybe a 70-30 ball. No defender in the country goes in for that tackle, except Julian. And Julian goes in so hard, and Fair takes the ball, takes Daly. Daly goes flying. Julian comes away with the ball. We're absolutely beside ourselves. Yeah. And Daly didn't touch the ball for the rest of the game. He didn't want it. Anytime they looked to pass to him, he was like, no, give it to someone else, mate. I'm not. Oh, he's mad.
Mental.
Julian was just, and his rocket shot as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to go with Julian, I think, for a left back.
Yeah, although I think, I agree, because I just think he just had so much career. As a player, as a left back, left back's not the most glamorous position, is it? But he just could conduct the crowd and the team, doesn't it? Sometimes, it's like sometimes it would be almost like, right, fuck it, I'll do it myself. You know what I mean? I'll just, and he just did.
I'll do everything. I'll play midfield. I'll be up front. You need a goal. I'm gonna shoot from 30 yards.
It's so true. And listen to the ex-players when they talk about Julian. They just had so much respect for him because he didn't warm up. I was interviewing like Tim
Probably used to smoke in the dressing room.
Exactly. He used to have I think someone said he used to have a can of Coke and a Mars bar, and then he'd be going out. And but you can imagine that. You can totally get that. People like Tim Breaker and who else? Peter Butler and people like that. Machines, sort of. They'd go out and warm up.
Fitness machines, right?
Yeah, fitness machines. Yeah, like they'd be warming up, stretching. Julian would just go out and just kick balls. Literally do.
So, did you ever read an interview with Joe Strummer about running a marathon?
No.
So Joe Strummer ran the London Marathon in 1983, and I know because Rolling Stone commissioned me to go and take pictures of him, and that's a funny story because I lived in Clapham, drove over to Blackheath, and they didn't give me a number of anyone. There's no cell phones. They didn't give me the number of his manager or arrange where to meet him. So I park, and there's 30,000 people there because it's the London Marathon, and it's raining. And I park and I get out of my car, and there's Joe Strummer there warming up. So I've got these great pictures of Joe Strummer. But he was interviewed years later about running the marathon, and he said, "What was your training regimen?" And he kind of laughed, and he said, "It's something like, I stayed up all night drinking beer, I had about 15 pints of beer, but I don't really want you to tell people because I don't want them thinking that that's the clever thing to do." But that was Joe Strummer's training regimen. He ran 2 marathons, London and Paris. But West Ham connection, his manager was Cosmo Vinyl. Another Mad Hammer.
Again, it's the Hammer connection again.
Cosmo's a famous artist in New York now. He does what Porky the Poet, what Phil Jupiter does a lot of, which is collage art. Anyway, Cosmo Vinyl, Hammer. Joe Strummer's manager. Okay, moving on.
Right back.
That's a tough one. Maybe go with Ray Stewart, although I think I might stick Billy Bonds in there rather than in midfield because Bonds has got to be in the team, and he was bought as a right back.
Yeah.
Although, prefer him and remember him mostly as a marauding midfielder. But I do wonder what he had against, I can't remember his name. There was a black player played for Stoke. It was Garth Crooks. Billy had something against Garth Crooks, and I don't know what it was, but he would just kick Garth Crooks up in the air.
Really?
When he was right back and Garth Crooks was playing up front, I think he was playing for Stoke at the time. And it looked like it was there was some needle there. There was more than just, more than just he's playing for them and it's Billy Bonds. But Billy, bandaged head, blood pouring over him, socks rolled down. Julian Dix on one side and Billy Bonds on the other. The hardest, even as hard as Dix was, I still say Bonds was probably the hardest player I ever saw. Hardest, fairest player I ever saw. Plus, what an inspiration! What a just never give up, never say die. What a leader! What an amazing player that man was. And there was one season he scored 18 or 19 goals and got a hat trick, I think. Took penalties and he just did everything.
Yeah.
One season, every other year he got like 3 or 4 goals, and one year he just got a bucket load.
Yeah, it happens, isn't it?
So I'm going to put Billy Bonds at right back.
Yeah, good shout. Okay.
Ray Stewart I loved as well, and he had a great shot on him and great penalty taker, obviously. But
yeah, and I mean, I think defensive wise, I think we've done all right recently. We don't, same with goalkeepers. We've had quite a few decent goalkeepers in our time as well. It's like we've always hasn't been, but as I said, I mean, left back, you said you got a choice between Frank Lampard Senior and Julian Dix. That's not a bad, in terms of his choice. Right, okay, let's go centre backs then, Steve. Who's your first centre back?
There was a bloke who used to play for West Ham a long, long time ago. What the number 6 shirt?
Matthew Upson. Famously retired.
It was Paul Hilton, the guy that we bought from the team that we just beat 10-0. because that's what you do, right? You beat a team 10-0 and you buy their centre half. No, Sir Bobby Moore, number 6. What a legend. So Valentine's Park. So we lived near Valentine's Park for a while when we were in Ilford. And I used to go and play football every Saturday morning. Well, I used to go there all the time, actually, play football. And I had a molten bike. I don't remember those, like a fold-up bike. And I used to tie my boots to the back of my bike. So we just finished playing football. And I was trying to tie my boots. And this little girl kept messing with my boots. And her dad walked over and he said, "Oh, let me help you with that." And he helped me tie mine. I'm just standing like this. And then he walked off. And I still had my mouth open. I rode my bike towards Beehive Lane because my mum and dad were there. I think they were using the laundrette up there. And my dad said, "You'll never guess who we saw coming out of the park." And I said, "Bobby Moore." He said, "How did you know?" "He just helped me tie the boots on my bike." But I was too gobsmacked to say anything. I didn't say like, "Bobby Moore, I'm such a huge West." I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But then we saw him once at Brighton. I think it's when we were doing the fanzine. We drove down to Brighton and he parked in a spot where he shouldn't be parking, like a no parking spot. And we stopped to tell him and he just blanked us. He just completely ignored us. We thought, "That's kind of rude, Bobby." He was there doing commentary, and his car got towed. His Jag got towed. I was like, "You should have fucking listened to us."
Yeah, should have.
Anyway, that's my other Bobby Moore story. No, Bobby Moore, legend. Obviously, one of the iconic photos of all time as well. Him and Pele exchanging shirts, tops off.
Yeah.
What can you say? Brilliant footballer, brilliant reader of the game, immaculate tackling without really tackling because he was always there first. He just knew where the ball was going to be. And one thing that people don't realise these days is that the best passer of all maybe the country's ever seen, especially to Jeff Hurst, would just, like the fourth goal in the World Cup final, just pinpoint onto Jeff's chest, which you don't really see either. Just, he was a great chester of the ball. And Bobby could find him anywhere, anytime. And that goal Michelle mentioned against Sunderland, I think that was the goal where he hit it from about 30 yards and he hit it and he just turned around like that, just put his arm up and walked away. He didn't watch it. He just knew. He just hit it and he didn't like jump up and down. He just turned around, put his hand up in the air and walked back to the centre circle. And then the ball's going like an arrow into the top corner.
Amazing.
He didn't watch it. He just turned and walked off.
Yeah.
Bobby Moore.
I was interviewing a guy the other day and he said Bobby Moore was one of those players who, a lot of people would do a trick or do a turn and the crowd would like cheer. But for Bobby, he would do something and the crowd would just like, there'd be a delay because they're like, "What the fuck's that?" And then it's like, "Yeah," and it's like, it was just incredible. And I know what he means. It's like, I in terms of no way am I comparing the two, but obviously when Payet scored that free kick against Palace, there was a second delay where no one cheered because it was almost like, "What the fuck's that?" And then
have you ever seen a free kick take a left turn before?
No.
Like literally take a left turn
Exactly.
at the end of its journey. It's like, oh wait, I need to turn left here. The laws of physics say that that's not possible. What he did was not possible. No. Yeah. So Bobby Moore, just an absolute genius. And I believe he was a really lovely guy as well. He used to have that sports shop right outside the ground, right on Green Street. For a number of years, even after he moved on, I think. And I was at Wembley for the cup final as well against Fulham. That was quite a nostalgic moment. It just didn't seem right, but he's leading Fulham out against us.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And not treated the way he should have been treated in Britain, I don't think. Not appreciated enough. Or yeah.
It was
in the game after he retired, I don't understand why he didn't become a great manager or anything.
Well,
anyway,
I mean,
watching
his documentary and stuff, it seems there was something there. There was a reason. No one really knows. I mean,
it was partly Mexico. I think partly it was what happened in Mexico, which was, as far as I ever knew, was a setup from the beginning. And I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. But, I mean, I spoke to, I can't remember who I spoke to, but another of the interviews, and he texts, because Matt Lorenzo did the Bobby Moore. Bobby Moore? No, he texted Jonathan Pierce. He texted Jonathan Pierce because Jonathan Pierce did because he was watching it with his son, and his son asked him the question about why Bobby didn't get into the England setup. So he texted Jonathan Pierce and said why, would he? And Jonathan Beersford, don't know. So it's like, well, he doesn't know. Okay, fair enough.
That's it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So Matt Lorenzo, how's Matt Lorenzo these days?
He's all right. He wasn't very well recently. I think he got the old COVID. We'll have him on the channel soon.
Oh no.
That's right.
He used to work for the Sun, right?
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah, long time.
100 years ago. His dad was Peter Lorenzo.
Yep. Chigwell boy.
Yeah.
Chigwell boy. Yeah.
Famous journalist.
Yep.
His sister or daughter. His sister was Maria Lorenzo. I used to go out with her.
See, that's what I mean. It's
I
weird.
used to go out with Maria Lorenzo. God,
So yeah,
Matt Lorenzo.
We'll get Matt on soon. So yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think he's
ask him
recovering.
about Maria Lorenzo.
I will do. Don't worry about that.
Wish her all the best. Send her all the best from me.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on.
Who's the other sent? Alvin Martin. Yes.
Alvin Martin. It's got to be Alvin Martin. Talk about bandages and blood all over his head and going in goal and scoring a hat trick, and I know Alvin Martin.
Brilliant player.
Yeah, and not a hammer. From Liverpool, being an Everton fan.
Yeah.
But like Julian, really, because if you talk to Julian, how would you not think that he's a Cockney?
No. Yeah.
How would you imagine this is a Bristol boy?
Yeah. Exactly.
And same with Alvin. He was there from like 16 or 17 years old, right?
Yeah.
And still had his Scouse accent, but he was a fierce hammer.
Yeah, he
was leader of men. Yeah.
He was, and he was very much. There's a few adopted Cockneys, and he's one of them. He still lives around the area. He still talks about obviously when Bill got his got the stand named after him. Alvin was doing the comparing. He was the one who presented, the whole bit. So there's lovely guy, Alvin. And lots of, and again, it's interesting when you talk to the players and the way they talk about, like I've interviewed like Tony Gale and the way he talks about Stretch, and, it's such a special time, that sort of, particularly 85-86 season, and they all speak so highly of each other. It's lovely, and just a real togetherness.
Yeah. Well, Tony Gale was another great hammer as well, has to be said.
Good fun.
I mean, he seems to bend over backwards not to compliment us in his commentaries, but
of course, because he's over there. He does the commentary for you over in the States, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, it's not on in the UK.
No, we don't. Tony Gale. No,
he's on every week.
Yeah.
So Tony Gale was responsible. He was as responsible for the bond scheme as Ince was for us getting relegated, in the sense that because he got sent off by Keith Hackett in the cup semi-final, because we sang Johnny Lyle's Claret and Blue Army for like an hour, even though we were losing 4-0.
Yeah.
The board, because Tony Gale got sent off for not doing anything, which was probably the single worst refereeing decision I ever saw, anywhere. Ever, just especially robbing us at Wembley, and then that was really why I left England. So Tony Gale was getting sent off because the bond scheme, really, they figured we would do anything for our team. So if they wanted to sell us seat licenses for 1,500 quid, even though we already had season tickets, so that we could pay for the right to buy a season ticket that we already had, they thought because of what we did at Villa Park, that we would do anything, and they could just steamroller us. And we were like, no, and that was the fanzine. Fortune's Always Hiding led that campaign against the bond scheme. Dixie, to his enormous credit, which was not the thing to do at the time for a footballer, he came out in support of us and said he thought it was wrong that they were trying to get all this money, get the fans to pay for the stand. Yeah. He got even more respect for doing that. But, that was very acrimonious. I was hauled up into the MD's office. They threatened to ban me for life because they saw me burning a scarf on the pitch. Because it was it wasn't a West Ham scarf, it was a fucking West Ham bond scheme scarf. Me and Steve Law were sitting in the chicken run, and we just lost, I think, to Wimbledon, 3-1. And we're just sitting there, and everyone goes, and me and Steve Law are just sitting there. Like, what was that cartoon? Darcy and Muttley? And Steve Law looks at me and says, "Oh, fuck it, I'm going on the pitch." And he just walks off. And literally, there's no one else there. We're just sitting there. Everyone's gone. And he just climbs over the wall and just goes and sits. I'm like, yeah, why not? And we just go and sit in the centre circle. And that was how we started the protest. And other people, suddenly there's like 300 or 400 people there. And then someone had a Bond scheme scarf because they'd been to a Bond meeting. So well, let's set fire to that shit. So then a few weeks later, they hauled us into the office and they said they had video of us burning a West Ham scarf in the centre circle. And it got pretty ugly. They were threatening us because they wanted us to, stop the protest. We did the red card. That was Fortune's Always Hiding. We sold 5,000 or 6,000 copies of that magazine.
Wow.
Every time we published. So all over the ground, so we had an issue and we had a big red piece of card. And we said at 3:15 or whatever, everyone hold up your red card to the Bond scheme. We did the stand up, sit down protest. If you're seated, stand up. If you're standing, sit down, and everyone did. And in the end, they had to abandon the scheme, right? They couldn't. Yeah. There was too much opposition to it.
Yeah, it was.
But that's also why we stopped doing the fanzine in the end. It's just, the joke's not funny anymore. It was really acrimonious and bitter time. Anyway, Tony Gale, if you hadn't got sent off.
Yeah. There we go.
I'd probably still be living in Clapham.
You'd still be in.
Anyway, moving on. He wasn't even in the team either. He
wasn't even in the team, really. That's a tangent. Left midfield. Who we got left midfield then?
I think I'm going to have to go with just a whole bunch of people now because there's people that need to be in the team. Yeah. So you're going to have Alan Devonshire in the team, but you're going to have Trevor Brooking in the team. Yeah. But you're going to have Frank McAvenny in the team. But you're going to have Paolo Di Canio in the team, and you've got to have Tony Cottee in the team. Yeah. And I probably should really have Jeff Hurst in the team. So what are we going to do? Like 6-7 strikers? Are we going to have
whatever?
What's this lineup going to look like?
It'll be first match of the day.
So Alan Devonshire.
Yeah.
What a player! We paid £5,000 for him from Southall. Was it 5 or 15?
5.
I think it was 5, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bargain, best bargain ever.
Ever.
Not the brightest sparks. I think he became a manager. But the fastest, just what a joy to watch that man was. Until he tore his knee ligaments, never quite the same player afterwards, which often happens. Really sad because he was still pretty young then as well. Yeah. Had a great career in front of him, but what a magical player Alan Devonshire was. And then there were years when we had Alan Devonshire and Trevor Brooking playing together in the same team.
Amazing.
That's mind-boggling, mind-numbing. Because Trevor Brooking was the most consummate, brilliant footballer of my life. Yeah. So as far as I ever had a West Ham hero, it was Trevor Brooking. And the number 10, I said Jeff Hurst was my first one, but after that, it was Trevor Brooking. I had a T-shirt made, a pale blue one, and it said Trevor Brooking is magic on it. When you could get T-shirt made at I can't remember where, in Ilford probably, they stitched the letters on. Could cross the ball with either foot, always unruffled, just the best player I ever saw. And I think he was up there on a world level with the Maradonas and I can't imagine a better player than Trevor Brooking, a better all-round player. Just such a joy watching his whole career at West Ham.
Exactly, and
staying
at West
Ham. Coming into breaking the team, 64, 65, staying at West Ham. We were offered, I think, £420,000 for him once, and he nearly left, but he didn't want to go. We were trying to sell him to raise funds to buy some other players. And so he's my number 1, my number 2, my number 10. Number 10 was always my position, was always my number 10. Maradona was number 10. The best players in the world always were number 10. Zidane. But Trevor Brooking was my number 10.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So I could use either.
But also, also the likes of Dev and Brooking and Moro, they were playing on. That's what I don't think people realise as the inexperienced fans, the younger ones, is how crap the pitches were, and they were still.
Good point.
And they were still being mesmeric. Like could you imagine them nowadays? Like on the bowling green at London Stadium, it would have been amazing. What could they have done for a ball? How much?
Trev, I don't know why Trev isn't regarded as just one of the greatest British players of all time. Maybe his England career wasn't as stellar as it should have been. He wasn't used enough or used in the right position. He did score some great goals for England, but he should have been one of our absolute legends because there's not a British footballer better than Trevor Brooking. You have to look at George Best or Dennis Law or some real magicians. There was a Eddie Gray who played for Leeds, was a magician, absolute magician. Once beat 5, 6 or 7 players to score a goal for Leeds. It was just, but Trev, week in, week out, beat players with just, he wasn't quick. He just had magic feet, both feet, could cross the ball, didn't have to beat a player to cross the ball. On either foot, on either side, curl it around a player, pinpoint crosses. When he scored a goal, it was magic, always. And he scored with a header in the cup final. I didn't even know it was a header until I was all the way back to East Ham.
Really?
Because it was at the other end. Yeah, we were all at the other end
Yeah.
In the 80 Cup final, and assumed he just bungled it in. And then someone said that he scored with a header. Like, Trevor Brooking. What? Yeah. So we went to High Street North for the celebrations right after the game, and then I just posted a couple of weeks ago. It was the anniversary, right? May the 10th was the anniversary, 40th anniversary. May the 11th was the anniversary of bringing the cup back, and I had some photos that I dug up. I took pictures. I went to East Ham Town Hall, and it was my mum's birthday, May the 11th. Never forgot that. Saw them all with the cup. Posted them on Instagram and on my Facebook. Some pictures I took ages trying to restore because it was all really badly damaged over the years. Probably the greatest day ever, I think. Bringing the cup back to East London. Yeah. At the Town Hall, they were all on the balcony. That was so brilliant.
How funny. Yeah, we had David Cross. We had David Cross on the other day, and he was brilliant. Such a lovely guy, and speaks so highly of his time at West Ham and the fans as well. And yeah, I mean, you know, there's not a huge number of people, West Ham players, who have lifted the FA Cup, and it's important that we keep, and that's the whole sort of the idea of this channel as well. It's almost like a time capsule type thing, you know, trying to keep these memories of these players going as the more experienced fans go away, so to speak. So it's a great player Brooking was, and so with Dev as well. Yeah.
Can I just go on a tangent there? Since you brought that up, I don't know how many people remember the 65 Cup Winners' Cup final or have actually watched it, because it's such a long time ago. There is a video of it. I watched that a few times. My dad wouldn't take me. That's the one game my dad wouldn't take me to.
Really?
I don't know why. I was too young for the 64 Cup final, so I watched it on telly. I remember Ronnie Boyce scoring the winner right at the end. So I was 7. And then the next year, I really desperately wanted to go to the Cup final, European Cup final, because it was at Wembley. And he wouldn't take me. He had a ticket and he wouldn't take me. I don't know why. That game is the best football I've ever seen.
Really?
So I don't know if people know that. Yeah, we won 2-0. It could have been 12-0.
Yeah.
Could have been 14-0. Some goalkeeping heroics and just bad luck and bad refereeing decisions. The football was the most sublime football you've ever seen an English team play.
Wow.
So if people haven't seen it or haven't seen it recently, go and watch the 65 Cup Winners' Cup final. It's really, really special. Yeah. That was a great team. And that was a great pitch to play it on, and our passing was absolutely out of this world.
I'll definitely check that one out. I've watched Tiger King now, so
you really could have watched this 8 times instead of watching Tiger King.
Could have done. We'll be a lot happier with it.
We're into midfield, and
so Dev will put Brooking in.
It's hard. Yeah, central midfielders. I'll tell you some players I really didn't like, and I was out on a limb with. Jimmy Neighbour. Hated Jimmy Neighbour. Number one, he was a Spurs player as far as I was concerned. Who did they get? Didn't we do a really bad deal for Jimmy Neighbour?
Well, we tend to not end up
getting
the wrong end of the stick. Yeah, I'm on the stick most times. Yeah, like we
did with Jimmy Greaves. Francois Van Der Elst. I know a lot of people thought he was brilliant. I thought he was absolute rubbish for West Ham. We bought him, you know, he played for Anderlecht in the 76 Cup Winners' Cup final against us, and he was the architect of their victory. I was at that game as well, at the Heysel. Went to the semi-final and the final, and but for a crossbar, we could have won that game.
Yeah.
But I thought Francois Van Der Elst was really, really, really lazy, and that's one thing I could never forgive in a footballer. That's why we got on Frank Lampard's back. It wasn't because it was the nepotism that he wouldn't ever get dropped no matter how lazy he was. And then he went on and became one of the greatest British midfielders of all time. It's sickening, really. But I suppose it's down to management as well. It was down to our management, not keeping on him, making him a great player, because they made him a great player at Chelsea, and he could have been ours the whole time. He actually sat on my dad's lap. Somehow my dad knew Frank Lampard. He was from Canning Town, Plaistow, and my dad was round at Frank Lampard's house once, and he had a baby, and it was Junior. And Dad loved to tell that. Yeah, it was a shame because he was one of ours, and we kicked him out, and then he hated us for it. But it was his own fat fault at the time. Sorry, I shouldn't fat shame anyone. But he was lazy. He felt like he was just in that team by right, and he didn't have to work for it.
Yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's hindsight's always a great thing, isn't it? And it happened all too often in that period, wasn't it? Where, what could have been that whole quartet-ish type of numbers of players, the Rios and Glens.
Is eight a quartet?
I don't know. But you know what I mean? Quintet. 'Cause I was thinking Lampard, Carrick, Cole, Ferdinand, Johnson. Those five players, as a nucleus, obviously, and became England's nucleus for a long time. You throw in John Terry, who was with us for a while as a kid, and we had.
He's a bit horrible, though, isn't he?
He's a bit horrible.
He was a bit horrible.
He was a bit horrible, JT. But he'd be one of those. He's one of those players who's he's a bastard, but he'll be our bastard. Do you know what I mean? We get.
He would have been out in the air.
The Craig Bellamy's of this world, and Robbie Savages. You used to hate them, but if they play for you, you're gone son. But
Bellamy was a great hammer, actually.
I loved Craig Bellamy.
Yeah, fastest thing on two legs, and except for that damn hamstring of his.
Yeah. It happens, isn't it, with those types of players when Michael Owen and people like that, they're never the same. And Dev,
that was a
Dev's the same. Obviously, Dev got so injured, and he was the flying winger, and he came back and had to reinvent himself for the, as more of a trickster rather than necessarily a speedster.
Yeah.
And actually, it's quite funny listening to when I talked to a few of the boys from '86. For upcoming videos that are coming on. Two strikers, for example, who played in the 85-86 season. You might have heard of them. They both tell the same story about Dev, word for word. It's really funny. And they haven't spoken to each other about it, but word for word, what Dev said to them in terms of advice was exactly the same. He must have said it for every one of the players about what to do. He knew exactly how many people were going to mark him. And he's like, just pass me the ball. I'll have three men on me, and I'll just flick it round, and you're through on goal. And they both went, what a cheeky bastard, knowing he's going to have three players on him.
And then it happened, right?
So true. It was true. It happened all the time. But,
that team, that was the dream team, wasn't it? It was just the weather that killed us. I think, but for the weather, we probably would have won the league.
Yeah, no, definitely. And
there's that brutal schedule, and
there's 17 club records, which that team still holds. Which
18 games in a row without losing.
Yeah, something like that. Home wins, away wins.
With Spurs, right? And then Neil Orr.
Yep.
Neil Orr. That was the game, right? Was it Chelsea at home? Neil Orr came on as a sub and gave away a goal from a corner. And that was really what cost us the title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Don Press used to argue about Neil Orr because he was a big Neil Orr fan. So it was his fault we didn't win the league. I always like to be able to blame someone, You notice that.
Yeah, you've got to blame someone, isn't it? It's someone's fault somewhere down the line. It might be Tony Gale 25 years later on, as you said, for the Bond scheme.
Yeah.
But there's always someone to blame. Anyway, back to the 11.
I've got about 20, haven't I? So we've just got to fit in. The rest of the team is an amorphous mess.
Yeah, So I think you still got to. We basically still have to. And we'll fit them in. We've still got. There's Di Canio, Hurst, Macca, and Cotti. I think they've all got
to play. Maybe.
Play.
Well,
maybe just
Frank McAvenny was super sub at one point, right? So maybe Frank can come on as a sub. He was the front cover of one of our Fortunes Always Hiding as a submarine. Don't call me super sub.
They'd all fit in the 11. I mean, that would be 11 players then.
They'd all be playing in midfield, and
Cotti
was brilliant.
Macca was signed as a wasn't signed as a striker. It was only Goddard that got injured, wasn't he? And he was playing in the hole, weren't he?
By accident. Yeah.
So I mean,
So
Paolo.
that was one of our most brilliant signings, Frank
was.
McAvenny.
Mm.
Again, not a Cockney, a
No.
Celtic fan, which is the only reason he left.
Yeah.
No one else could have got him
so true.
to leave.
Yeah.
Just because he was really torn as well, because he loved West Ham.
He really was. Yeah.
He was a great hammer. Got his leg broken by that fucker from Stoke. Birmingham. You remember?
No, I was about 5 at the time, Steve. Sorry.
It's someone who's. Oh, sorry, mate. He was on TV as well. He's one of the TV sports broadcasters. Oh, the name will come to me. But he broke McAvenny's leg. Really disgusting, dirty tackle. It was a dirty player.
Yeah.
They really went after McAvenny, and that really cost him his career, I think. Mm. You might want to ask him about that. But Cotty was another hammer through and through.
Again, didn't want to really leave Everton, based on the interview he gave to me the other. Spoiler alert! When we spoke the other day, again,
it was business, right?
Yeah, it's just business, and it was.
And he came back as well, right?
He did. He came back, and they both came back, and they both still love the club, and they both, it was. You got that sense that they were so, that team was so strong at that period of time that if it was a little, rather than resting the laurels, a bit more investment into that team, it would have carried on being a special team. Again, it's all too familiar for us, isn't it, West Ham fans? You had that peak and then
break it up instead of building on it. That's sadly been a
fortune's
story.
Always hiding.
I have looked everywhere, but Scotty Parker mentioned.
Yeah,
definitely a mention for Scotty Parker as such an engine, unfortunately not a great passer of the ball. But I always said with him, if he was a great passer on the end of those runs, he never would have played for West Ham. I mean, he would have been the England captain. He would have been like a multi-million-dollar player. The only reason we had a player like that was because he wasn't a great passer of the ball. So he could, box to box, bring the ball, unbelievable engine, unbelievable driving force, just not. That end product was sometimes not there, but if it had been, he wouldn't have been playing for us. So,
no. And again,
because he was such a brilliant player all round.
He was, and one of those players, a bit similar to Julian in that respect, where you'd almost look at him and he'd almost go fuck it, and he'd put his socks up. I'll do it myself, and literally he would. I mean, it was a crap team he was in. To be honest, it wasn't a good team, but it would have been a lot worse if he wasn't there. A lot worse.
I want to give a shout out to someone who probably doesn't get much love. Is Stuart Robson. Because he was, by my reckoning, not a hammer through and through. I can't remember where he got him from, but there was this one game he was out for like 12 months or 14 months with a groin strain. Probably had 2 or 3 surgeries. Looked like his career was over, but he was another like 110% always. But there was a game, I think it was at Villa Park. And I think it was his comeback game. He was supposed to play like 25 minutes, and he ran about 100 miles in that game. I think it was a 0-0 draw, but I don't think I ever, in all my years watching West Ham, I don't think I ever saw anyone run as much and work as hard as he did. And there was one point right near the end, he stayed on for the 90 minutes, and he ran literally from like the right corner flag to the left corner flag at the other end. And I had never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Never seen that much commitment from a player. Even having watched, Billy and Julian and Ray Stewart and Alvin Martin and all these human dynamos, Scotty Parker. But just give a shout out to that one absolutely legendary performance, because I think his groin was effed again afterwards as well. I think he just laid it all out there and
just had a go.
Yeah,
you get that,
Stuart
don't you?
Robson.
Don't you get that? You get that with some players. You get this sort of mesmeric one game. I always go back to Jonathan Spector against Man United.
Right.
He done fuck all, and then literally he put him in midfield, and he was like Perlo. He was amazing. And scored a hat trick, and then that was it.
Yeah, Stuart Slater. Shout out for Stuart Slater as well.
Slates, yeah.
Don't know what happened to that guy's career, because remember he was a ball juggler, phenomenal ball juggler. He was a phenomenal player, but I think with the right management, he could have had a stellar career. I know he went to Celtic, right?
He went too early to Celtic. That's what people say, isn't it, when they talk about him?
There was one game we played. I think it was against Everton, and I think who was the great Everton goalie? It wasn't
Southall.
Howard Kendall. It was Southall. Yeah. I think he made like 6 absolutely world-class saves, all off Stuart Slater. There was one run that Stuart Slater did in that game with a smash to the top corner to top it off, and Southall somehow saved it. It would have been the greatest goal I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
There was one of those days where Slater was untouchable. He was absolutely phenomenal.
But you get that, don't you? And I think that's what's great about the channel is there's certain moments, like you said, that game against Everton, someone else will say a game, be, I don't know, Mark Ward against someone, and it's all pieces of this sort of pieces of the puzzle, and no, it's a good fun. And I think, you haven't even spoken about Di Canio yet, and Hurst, the other 2 people you mentioned. I mean, Hurst,
as far as Di Canio is concerned, everyone knows,
yeah.
All your viewers know about Di Canio. I mean, what can you say?
Yeah.
Except that, Di Canio, absolute genius, nutty as a fruit and nut bar, Nazi, fascist rather. I mean, that's just. And my mum loved Paolo Di Canio.
Yeah.
She absolutely loved Paolo Di Canio. She hated Nazis. And I've had to tell this story a lot lately because of what's going on in this country. But I fucking hate Nazis. My granddad, my mum's father, was murdered in front of her by the SS in Poland in 1940, kicked to death. And so my mum did not like fascists or Nazis, but she loved Di Canio. And I gave her the book, and she read the Di Canio book, and she read about his Lazio stuff and all the neo-Nazi or neo-fascist stuff. And the salutes and everything, and she's like, I love Di Canio. So I kind of followed her lead on that one. He's Paolo Di Canio. Just a fruitcake, product of his environment as well. The Lazio ultras. I think Roma are the big team. His team was the, kind of the underdogs, like the West Hams of Rome. And if he'd been born in the East End at the same time as me, he probably would have been in the ICF. He would have been one of the leaders of the ICF. He would have carried a Stanley knife, and he would have done a lot of bad stuff to Chelsea fans. And he would have given a lot of Zeke Howe salutes. So one quick story on that front. So we're going to a game in the Midlands, and we're at King's Cross Station. And I'm about 16 or 17, so it's got to be like 1973, somewhere around there. And there's a bunch of really hard nut, very racist West Ham fans making a lot of noise, singing, and they're singing something about black people, something really horribly racist. And there's this one black guy in the middle of them, and I swear they stopped singing. They looked at their friend and they said, "But you're black." And he says, "Yeah, but I'm one of you." And then they all just went back to singing this racist song.
Just carries on.
So. Yeah, I didn't know what to make of that. Felt sorry for the kid because, So I got into politics again, didn't I? So let's go back to number 9, number 10, number 8. Who was a great number 8? Ronnie Boyce?
Yeah.
Ronnie Boyce was number 8, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think he was.
Yeah, Braybrooke Boyce, her Sissons. Johnny Sissons, another great left winger. Right in my early days, because his peak was like 65, 66, maybe 64. He was a cracking player, though. Bit of a pin-up, blonde hair, blue-eyed. Oh, I just did it again, didn't I? Now we're talking about Aryans again. Johnny Sissons, left wing. Yeah, great player. Probably wouldn't make my team, but maybe could be on the bench if we got a long bench.
You've got a long bench. By the sounds of it, you've probably got another 11 players on the bench, Steve, to be honest.
We've got a massive bench. Who are we forgetting then? So we've got an inside left. We've got centre forwards, Tony Cottee and Jeff Hurst, probably. Yeah. Psycho was a great centre forward, though. Psycho's probably underrated as one of the great battering rams of centre forwards for West Ham. Would also run through brick walls for you.
He would,
yeah. No, I follow him on is it on Twitter, I think.
Yeah,
his daughter's in the England cricket team, right? His daughter's a brilliant cricketer.
She is. Yeah, she helped him set up his Zoom when I called him. Bless her.
Brilliant.
Yeah, he's a good lad.
So he's another adopted Cockney, right?
Yeah, definitely. He definitely is. He's still, and he's so thankful about the.
Oh,
go on.
Carlos Tevez.
Oh,
Carlos Tevez. I mean, at the very least, I know I can't put him on the bench because that was such a. We want Tevez on the pitch, so Tevez has to start. Whoever's on the bench, Tevez has to start. And I think we were talking about right midfield just to piss off the management. I'm going to put Mascherano in there. The greatest West Ham player never to play for West Ham.
Oh yeah, but Caleb Mullins took his place, so that's it.
Oh, don't get me started. Do not get me started. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes there, but you need someone to come on the show and tell you the story.
Yeah, we'll find it. We'll find out eventually.
Became like the centre pin of the greatest club football team maybe ever. Right? Played 120, 140 times for Argentina. Couldn't get in the West Ham team because of Hayden Mullins.
No, I know.
Sat on the bench. Carlos Tevez, one of the greatest players any of us have ever seen, sitting on the bench away to Fulham at Christmas. You want Tevez on the pitch.
Oh man, it's funny.
And somehow a Hammers legend.
Famously, he brought back the older.
He did. I'd never seen that before. I don't even remember seeing that growing up.
No, playing for Man United. It's not even like it was a West Ham game. He brought it back.
So that was the game when he scored in the return game at Upton Park, and he did that to all sides of the ground, right? In a Man United shirt.
Yeah.
Actually, honestly, not being funny, one of the best moments I've ever seen as a West Ham fan.
Yeah.
Just that meant a lot to me. That really did. He scored that brilliant goal. Just felt bad about it. You know, you could see that. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah, no,
it should be about. Yeah.
And that should be, and it's like, you know, he was there for a relatively small amount of time, and he made a big impact and a huge impact. You know, obviously kept us up. You know,
scored the goal.
The goal, exactly. Well, I remember Robert Green played an absolute blinder that day as well. Old Greeno, but as again,
actually, he could easily be the goalie as well. Another brilliant goalie.
We'll make the team work, Steve, somehow.
To play against themselves.
Well, nowadays we've got 5 subs coming on. You know, I think they can put.
This is more like one of those testimonials when you've got like 27 subs.
Rolling subs.
I think it's going to be so old that I can't really just have 11. Well, so we don't have Tevez somewhere and he can't be on the bench. McAvenny can't be on the bench because he'd be upset because it used to really piss him off when he was called super sub. Cotty obviously never was on the bench, so he's got a place. We're just going to have to play with 17 players.
We'll just play with extra players. We'll just do a rolling subs.
We still lose though.
Yeah, Rush goalie.
Still lose though.
We probably still would.
Yeah.
Steve, it's been brilliant talking to you. It's been lovely talking to you. You do have.
I thought it was going to be 15 minutes. You know.
As always, these ways you start about West Ham, it just goes on, doesn't it? And I think you will have the record of the longest episode, so that's something.
I mean, probably because I'm the oldest person who's been on.
No, not necessarily, but the most stories. So it's been absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much.
I miss everyone. I miss Ken's calf. You know, I miss.
It's shutting down, isn't it?
Miss Upton Park. They shut down. Yeah, Carol always said they closed down when we moved. Wish I could have been there for the Man United game. I really, really, really do. One of the best days ever. The best day ever, I would say, was when we got promoted. I came back to for game at Wembley with my family, with Michelle, with Tom, with Laura, his wife, who's an Arsenal fan. She wore a West Ham scarf for the day, came to the game with us. Don Peretta, the whole Peretta family, girlfriends, sons, daughters, their spouses. That was such a brilliant day out.
It was, yeah.
It was. So cool. And a shout out to Cardiff, where most people don't know this, but Tom broke his ankle during the game because he couldn't get a ticket for the game. So he's in a pub. He's in a West Ham pub in Cardiff. I'm at the game. Michelle and Mad are at the game. That's my niece, Mad's daughter. But they only got me a ticket on my own. They got me a ticket. So I came back from America for the game. And I'm the last West Ham fan next to all the Liverpool fans down the side of the ground. And Tom's in the pub. And when we scored the second goal to go 2-0 up, he's standing on a chair. He's 6 foot tall. He's standing on a chair to watch it. The bloke next to him jumps up with his elbow, hits Tom in the face with his elbow by accident, chips his tooth, knocks him off the chair. He falls down the stairs, breaks his leg, wakes up in the hospital at half time. Says, "What's the score? What's the score?" You've got to get Tom on to tell that story.
Oh, we will do. We will
But
do.
at the end of the game, Gerrard comes over and got an immense reception from the West Ham fans because he was going to be England's captain, right, very soon in the World Cup.
Mm.
And the Liverpool fans started singing "You Never Walk Alone," and I actually had my scarf, my West Ham scarf, and I actually swayed and sung "You Never Walk Alone" with them, tears rolling down my face.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I went to meet up with Michelle and Mad, and then Tom comes up on crutches, and every Liverpool fan in Cardiff walks up to us and says, "Mate, you really deserve to win. You were robbed."
Yeah, I know. It's such
Every
a bizarre
one of them,
feeling,
every
isn't
one of the Scousers. That was another really, really memorable, historic day. So probably the first one because we won and we got promoted.
Yeah.
And it was like winning a cup final, even though we didn't win anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It was our cup final. And then 2006 was absolutely brilliant day out as well.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. Anyway, so obviously thank you to everyone for listening and watching and viewing. Share, like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. And thank you, Steve. And obviously from me and Steve and to everyone watching, stay safe, everyone. And we'll see you again very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.